Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming and spending your Friday with us. Um, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I have some housekeeping to take care of before we do. We have some awesome captioners on here today, Angie and Lee, and they're going to be providing captions for everyone. So in order to view those captions, you want to select the live transcript button on your Zoom menu bar, and the captions will appear along the bottom of your screen. To use the chat, make sure that you choose everyone when you're writing a message or a question, because somebody else may have that same question. Maybe they're nervous to ask. So make sure everyone can see your questions and can understand what's happening in the chat by choosing the drop down above the text entry field and select everyone. And that's all about that. You are here hopefully for this webinar, an overview of assistive technology assessment for the teacher of students with visual impairments. I'm Andrea Wallace, and I'm a statewide educational specialist for the visually impaired at FIMC. And just a fun quick fact, because I'm just so excited, happy, and proud of myself, I am now officially a CADIS, a certified assistive technology instructional specialist for the visually impaired. And I passed my exam last Friday, and I'm official on the ACVREP website now. In-service credit, I bet you're here and you want some points. So we will explain how to get credit at the end of the webinar, but your magic code for now that you need to hang on to, so write this down somewhere if you need in-service credit, is SELECT, S-E-L-E-C-T, SELECT. That is the opening code. And thank you for Sherry typing things in the chat. She's my assistant today. Thank you, Sherry. Shout out for her. Just some reminders about FIMC and who we are. We are a statewide resource center for K through 12 students who are visually impaired and enrolled in public, private, or home schools. We are located in Hillsborough County Public Schools, and we operate under the Florida Department of Education in the Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services on an annual grant. And our mission is to promote the success of Florida students with visual impairments by providing free, high quality, accessible instructional materials in a timely manner, and providing teachers, administrators, families, agency personnel, and others with resources and opportunities for training and professional development, like this webinar today. And our vision is to striving for access and success for at the highest levels for all students with visual impairments. It's a new vision statement for us, so I'm getting used to saying. Okay, Woo Clap. Who remembers Woo Clap? Liz started this trend, our supervisor. And so on this slide, we have directions on how to participate in Woo Clap. Additionally, Sherry just popped a link into the chat, so you can just click on that to actually join our Woo Clap on your computer. But if you would want to choose to participate by phone, there is a QR code for you to scan. You can also text the phone number on the screen, which is 855-910-9662. And you do @ibendy in the message, or IBENDY. I like that code. I've never seen one like that, ibendy. And so if you could give me a thumbs up or something in the chat saying, yeah, I've got it. I got Woo Clap. I'm ready to participate. It's Friday, so, we got to have some active participation. All right, thanks, Karen. Appreciate that. Woo Clap. Yeah. All right, at least I know I have 2 people, 3 people. Yes, use those emojis in the chat. They are fun. All right. So hopefully everyone has been able to get a chance. If not, let me know. I can come back to this sign in, but you can also use that link that Sherry had popped in the chat. All right. Okay, first Woo Clap question. What is one word that comes to mind when you think about AT assessment? One word, just one. Isn't that the challenge? It's going to tell me how many answers I received. Got 2 of 3, 4. All right, keep them coming. I have 13 attendees. Ooh, 7, 8. Yes. See if I can get a couple more. 9 is fine. 10, 10. No. All right. All right. All right. Oh, ooh, yes. Oh, you guys have made me happy. Full participation. No kidding. That's amazing. All right. So let's do a little word cloud here. Oh, hold on. I'm rusty. Okay. Let's see what words you came up with. Ooh, essential, exciting, confusion. Okay, I'm glad you're here. Um, devices, difficult, overwhelming. Okay, and overwhelming is like big and in the center, so maybe a few people said the same thing. Data, access, interesting, cochlear. Interesting. Tools. Okay, lots of really good words here. And I'm glad you're here to discuss how essential, how exciting, and how overwhelming and difficult and confusing it can be, because it is a huge subject. And this is, again, think back to the title of this webinar. This is just an overview. We are just scraping the surface, but I did develop some tools to help you out. So I'm hoping these are some things that you can take away from this webinar and use. And then, send back some tools that maybe you use that I can share with others if they've been working for you. We want to make this process as easy and as less overwhelming as it can be for people across the state. And technology is a part of our daily lives. It's not going anywhere. It's going to increase. And we have to become more comfortable with using it so that we can help our students become more comfortable as well. All right. Okay, so let's bring it back a little bit before we talk about AT assessment in particular. Let's talk about essential assessments for students with visual impairments. And that was one of the words on the previous slide. So I love that. Essential. Yes, it is essential. And there are other essential assessments as well. You have the functional vision assessment, and that's where you're assessing how a child uses their vision to perform daily tasks across various environments. Then you have your learning media assessment, where you're assessing how a student is accessing information from various sensory channels and systems. And you notice some highlighted words on the screen too, like accessing information. I'll call more out. This whole line is highlighted. In the learning media assessment, you're determining general learning media the student will use. So you're looking around that classroom. What does the student need access to? There's textbooks, maybe there's some whiteboards, spelling words on the wall, a word wall. You're determining literacy media the student will use for reading and writing. So are they going to be using Braille? Are they going to be using large print? Are they going to be using regular print with devices? Are they using a combination? Are they using digital text? So looking at all those things in a learning media assessment. And then this last one is important, and just kind of keep this in the back of your mind as we go through the next few slides, is to determine AT tools that best serve the student's learning needs. Determine AT tools that best serve the student's learning needs. Because you're looking at all that general learning media that's across the student's environments. Well, they may not be able to access it due to their visual impairment. So what technology is going to be able to help them access it, whether it's low or high tech? Then, of course, we have the expanded core competencies, or the expanded core curriculum, and assistive technology is a part of that. So that's also why it is an essential assessment for our students. And I took this from Essential Tools of the Trade, which is available through our loan library, but you can also have your district purchase it, or you can purchase it through Texas School for the Blind. All right. So how do we determine assistive technology for the student? Yes, through assessment and trial and all kinds of things. But through that functional vision and learning media assessment, you have determined what optimizes and hinders that student's functional vision. You've determined current and future literacy mediums. You've identified visual, auditory, and tactile access to digital media in the classroom. So now we really have to think about the accommodations needed for efficiency of access to those things in the classroom. Through this process, you've also interviewed classroom teachers, you've interviewed parents and others, so you can get a view of what's happening, not just in the school, but also what's happening at home. So speaking of parents and the interview process, I know a lot of people use forms that they've either made or they've borrowed from other assessment protocols and come up with interview questions for parents that are often sent home. So with that in mind, how could we better address AT in those interview forms so that parents are more involved in the selection of that device and we get more information from parents? So I'm not going to press enter yet because that will bring up a whole list of questions, but I'm curious, what questions would you add to your current form, or do you have questions on your form that address technology in the home? Go ahead and type those in the chat. What interview questions would be good to add to the parent interview form? Danny, hi Danielle Johnson. What forms of technology do you use at home? Yeah, what kinds? What is in the home? That's a very good question to start with. What kind of tech is in the home? Anybody else have any other ideas? Karen, how does your child interact with touchscreen devices at this time? Ooh, like phones or tablets? And Sherry added, is there anything your child cannot access at this time? Eileen, what's a good time for us to chat about the tech in your home? Yes. Do you have Wi-Fi at home? Cindy, ooh, yes, that's such a good question. Kristen, how does your child access homework? Giovanni, I hope I am saying your name correctly. What access do you have to technology at home? Yes. These are all excellent questions. And I'm curious, TVIs that are in the room, as part of your learning media or functional vision assessment, do you have questions like this that address those these types of questions on your forms? I'm going to go ahead and I have some sample questions out here, such as, is there a voice assistant and or a computer in the home? So some of you kind of address that through your questions. And then how does the student use them? Are they using them?
Mr. Jones, please come up to the student services office. Mr. Jones, please come up to the student services office.
Pardon, we had an announcement. Does the student have a phone? So Karen had mentioned touchscreen devices. Are they in the home? Does the student use it independently? How are they using the phone? What apps are they using? Does the student have a tablet? What do they have on that tablet? What apps are they accessing? What do they use it for? And does the student have a monocular? Do they have a low vision device? And how are they using that monocular? So finding out which technology is in the home and asking how the student is using it can provide a lot of really good information. And it provides an opportunity for you to say, oh, have you thought about using the device in this way? Or giving them some ideas of activities they can do at home to continue using that device, or build confidence using the device. Some fun ones to give are like if they have voice assistants in the home, such as Alexa or Google Home, there are fun games related to O&M and all kinds of stuff that you can do on them that are useful. But you can also use it for simple functional things like checking the weather. Okay, then how do you need to dress today for whatever weather? In the case of Florida, it's usually, hot, humid, and probably going to rain. So you can ask the student, how are you going to dress for the day? Or what do you need to bring with you so you don't get soaked on your way home? We can empower parents through interviews by asking open-ended questions and follow-up questions, and through the communication styles and languages that work best for the family. But I highly encourage, I know a lot of people send these forms home in a backpack or they email them, but picking up the phone and calling the parent and discussing these things just gives that opportunity for good conversation about the technology. So I think it's really important to just develop that connection with the parents. If both of your schedules allow, really having those conversations and being able to ask follow-up questions is imperative. Chatting, yes, Eileen, chatting, having a little chat. have a cup of coffee. I don't know. Tea with the TVI. I don't know. Something fun. All right. So when we think of AT assessments for students who are visually impaired, you guys gave me a good laundry list of words, but let's think about it a little bit differently. Should it be a separate thought from the assessments we do? We kind of covered that on one of the slides previously. When you're completing a learning media assessment, you are really looking around that student's environment to see what learning media the student will need to access, and what type of tasks they're going to need to be able to complete independently. When you think about a student's classroom, what learning media will they need to access? So I have a picture on the left-hand side of the screen. It's very bright, colorful, elementary classroom, tons of stuff going on. There's a mat in the middle of the room in front of the smart board, and there's an easel there. There's a whiteboard. There's a projector, so I'm assuming they can project stuff onto the whiteboard as well. There are books. There's maybe a computer station. That's probably the teacher workstation. And there's tons of stuff on the walls. So looking at this classroom, what accommodations are you already thinking of, or maybe some potential tech? You can think of specific students. I'm not going to give you a sample student right now, but what kind of accommodations might a student need in this classroom? Or maybe some tech to get your juices flowing. We'll chat, as Eileen said, we're going to chat about it. I know you're chatting with your keyboard. That's what's happening now. Ooh, some distance magnification. Thank you, Sue. I would start low tech, maybe a slant board at their seat. I like it. Yeah. And I know I didn't give you a specific student to think about, so you're just pulling out things based on a random student in your brain. But yeah, distance magnification. You're thinking about where they should sit because we see some nice natural lighting going on. See some glare on some desks. So yeah, lots of different things to consider. Ooh, maybe tactile marker for both their seat and the table, and the carpet for a Braille student. And I've got a little some thinking about classroom orientation, near magnification. Yes, thank you, Ashley. Giovan, text to talk for computers. All right, all right. Very good, awesome. So yeah, so there's a lot going on in that classroom. Well, that's just one room that student may be in for the day, right? Well, there's other environments to consider, such as the library, the lunchroom, and then the computer lab, which is an example I have on the right-hand side of the screen. You've got tons of computers. They're lining the walls. They're in the center of the room. There's a giant television. There's posters everywhere. So the student may need some technology that will also work in that other classroom, but that will also work in this room. Or maybe they need additional tools for their toolbox to access things in their classroom. And thank you, Miriam. CCTV for the board. All right, some distance access. All right. And Danny said she loves the contrast and simplicity of the computer lab that is displayed here. It is a very nice computer lab. Looks very inviting, very clean. It's probably the beginning of the school year, right, for both of those rooms. All right. So moving on, continuing to talk about the assessments that you already do, like the learning media assessment. I'm trying to make AT assessment less scary because it's actually just a part of what you're doing with the LMA. So you've done all your detective work through the learning media assessment to find all the learning media your student needs to access. And this includes the technology available in the school. So what's already existing on the school level? What tools does the student already have, which we'll get more into that later. But also considering what digital learning platforms is the school using? Do they use Canvas? Do they use, I'm going to say a fun word, iReady? Do they use Google Classroom? And feel free to throw other platforms in the chat that may be being used in your school district. So yeah, what's happening at the school? What does the student need to access? Not just what's around the classroom, but what's on the tools that are in the classroom, like the computer, like the tablets. We've got Canvas, PDFs, accessing PDFs. Oh yes, oh my. So we now need to know how they are going to access these things with low and high tech. Like Karen mentioned earlier, oh, maybe I'd start with a slant board for a student with low vision. So yeah, that's a low tech option. And then maybe thinking about distance magnification, like some of you mentioned, for high tech. So it's time to figure out what will go in the student's access toolbox or their tech toolbox, as we think about back to those classrooms that we looked at. All right, so some key considerations for that access or tech toolbox. What does the student need to accomplish? And we want to think about what their visual prognosis is, their abilities, their future needs, etc. But how many of you have heard of SET? How many of you have heard of the SET framework or know who Joy Zabala is? Anybody familiar with SET? So this is, yes, yay, Kristen. So this framework was developed, Sherry's heard of it. This was developed by Joy Zabala, may she rest in peace. This was a huge contribution to the field of helping determine technology for students. So SET stands for Student, Environment, Task, and Tools for those of you that are unfamiliar. So for students who are visually impaired, what that means for us within the SET framework is we're going to look at the student first. We're going to look at their vision, their prognosis, their abilities and challenges, and their future needs. So we want to consider the student always first and look at them and their needs. Then we want to look at their environments, which is the E in SET. So where is the student going to use technology? Where are they every day? What are they doing? Then what tasks are happening within those environments? The student needs to complete, excuse me, pardon. The student needs to complete to participate in school and achieve IEP goals. Which tasks? Tools. What tools does the student currently have? And again, what tools also exist within the school district? Does the student need to add to their toolbox to be able to access everything in their learning environment and across other environments? And the biggest thing I think to remember with SET and any type of assessment framework or protocol that you use is to bring it back to IDEA and what AT is defined as in IDEA. Part of the definition is you want to choose technology that increases, maintains, or improves functional capabilities of the student. And I have increases, maintains, or improves underlined because we know that cool new tech comes out and we're like, yeah, really jazzed about it. I'm guilty of it. I get so excited about new technology, but then you have to sit down and think about the realistic uses of these devices and tools. And are they going to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of that student? Is it going to make them more efficient at completing schoolwork or accessing whatever they need to for school or at home? You also want to look at tools that provide access for best provide access for learning and the needs of the student. So whatever is going to work to access those platforms so they have equity and they're accessing what everybody else does. And it's meeting that student's needs. And there's never a one size fits all solution. And we'll kind of get more into that later, but I know when iPads came out, we were all really excited about iPads. And we were like, every student should have an iPad, right? Yeah, we'll talk more about that later though. Oh, sorry, technology, work when you can. All right, I have another poll for you, another woo clap. All right, so I'm curious what the tech is out there. What are you guys using out there? So I have a list on the screen. And I want you to select all the devices students on your caseload are currently using or learning how to use. So number 1 is a laptop. Number 2 is desktop video magnifier like a Reveal 16 or a VisioBook. Number 3 is a handheld video magnifier like a Ruby. Then Number 4 is prescribed devices like magnifiers or monoculars. Number 5, screen readers, JAWS and VDA narrator. Number 6, screen magnification like Zoom text. All right. Number 7, refreshable braille. Number 8, braille note taker. Number 9, AAC devices and switches. 10, abacus. There's 2 people out there using an abacus. I hope your students are registered for the abacus fee. And number 11 is talking calculator, and 12 is other, something that's not mentioned here. Let's see, I have 8 responses out of 22. Oh, more people maybe joined us. Yay, abacus. Yes. Excuse me. Okay. Ooh, I'm really happy to see 63% of you, 5, have laptops selected. Desktop video magnification, 3 people. Some screen reader use, handheld video magnification, prescribed devices, 4 of you. Refreshable braille, yay. AAC devices, all right, that's 1 person. And Eileen's like, I'm not choosing any because she's not working directly with students. Well, she's working directly with other students, preparing future teachers. Yay, so glad you're here, FSU students. Talking calculators too. Okay, 1 of you. All right, cool. Thank you for participating. It's good to know what's out there. It'll help me guide discussion a little bit later on. So on the slide, we have some example considerations for students with low vision of what we need to think about when we're filling those students' toolbox. So number 1 is students with low vision should have a clinical low vision evaluation for prescribed optical devices, such as magnifiers and telescopes. It's so imperative that they see a clinical low vision specialist to make sure that their glasses are meeting their needs, that their vision is being enhanced to the best that it can be through the use of optical devices that are prescribed. So that's really important. And then the second part to that, though, is that these students receive training to use these devices effectively and efficiently. They need practice, they need guidance when they're learning how to use these tools. So Eileen's giving me yes, extra yes. So there's some great resources out there with lots of fun ideas to teach your students how to use these tools. And the Florida Low Vision Initiative, they have a live binder that is like full of resources. I highly recommend you checking that out, the Florida Low Vision Initiative's live binder. There's also, I don't know if this is still a recommended reading anymore for Florida State University, but it's Looking to Learn, and it's a red book, and it's got some outdated language, but still great ideas for teaching how to use low vision devices. So yes. Oh, and Eileen put in the chat the FLVI live binder, so check that out if you haven't before. There's also the Envision kit from American Printing House for the Blind. There's a version that has magnifiers, which we do not allow because students need to have prescribed devices, but they sell the kit separately without the magnification, without the optical devices. So you can request that through APH, through FIMC, and have that to add to your tool of lessons. And thank you, people, for popping links in the chat. I appreciate it. Okay. Oh, and on this page too, I do want to say there's a video magnifier comparison chart on here that's really tiny. And you can get this for free from Teaching Students with Visual Impairments website, which is teachingvisuallyimpaired.com. And it just gives you some activities and some highlights, like, is it sturdy? Does it have color polarity options? Is it portable? Is it compact? Does it do distance? And it talks about the type of models, like desktop model video magnifiers, flex arm cameras, tablet systems, and pocket or handheld video magnifiers. So just as you're assessing a student, like, well, what do they need? Do they need something that helps with handwriting activities? You could go across here and see, well, what category should I start in to start trialing devices, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So video magnification, the considerations for that. So if a student, they may get prescribed devices, but that doesn't mean that has to be all that's in their toolkit. It's a big important part of their toolkit, but there could be some high-tech options also in their toolkit, such as video magnification. And some considerations for that are the magnification level and the working distance. So could the student make things large enough to where they're at a comfortable working distance and they're not leaning over or or touching their nose to the screen. And if they are getting that close and things are large, you may want to consider other avenues of access for that student. Other thoughts for video magnification: does it have contrast and color filters that the student may benefit from using? Does the student need to access distance materials? Because sometimes video magnifiers, the desktop kind, they don't do distance. Not all of them do. They're starting, I guess that's kind of almost the standard now, but there are some that just do near. So what are their needs? Do they need that access to distance? Do they just need near? Do they need the combination? And does the student need an XY table? And gosh, so many video magnifiers now do not have an XY table. You can buy them separately sometimes, and some still do come with them. But what a lot of video magnifiers are doing now is allowing the user to take an image. You zoom all the way out, take an image of what's underneath the camera, and then it has a still on the screen, and then you zoom in and you have like a directional pad or a joystick, kind of like a joystick, to be able to navigate the image just using like a navigation tool. So instead of moving the book around, sliding it around on the XY table, which for those of you that don't know, it's a table that moves along the x-axis left and right, and the y-axis up and down. But it adds it's a heavy component, and it also takes up a lot of room. So if the student doesn't have a lot of room to work, something that takes an image and then zooms in on it, and you're able to navigate it that way through digital means, that may be the answer for that student. But those are all considerations for students with low vision. Thank you for all the links, everyone. Appreciate it. Got a good team here. All right. Oh, also, bigger is not always better. Just because it has a student has low vision doesn't mean that enlarged materials or magnification is going to be the answer for them. And that's why we have to do our due diligence and that thorough assessments to determine what is going to be the most efficient means of access for this student. And just real quick, optical devices versus video magnification, trying to make a new word here. So the basic differences between these two is that the magnification range and power. Traditional prescribed magnifiers have fixed powers such as 3x, 5x, and 8x. Whereas with video magnification, you have a wider range of magnification that allows for flexibility in viewing a wide range of materials. And because of the prescribed magnifiers having fixed magnification, that's why they're prescribed, because they're the clinical low vision specialists figuring out what works with that student's, if they have glasses, with their prescriptions and with their vision. So that's something that they are qualified to do, where we can look at video magnification because it is not fixed in that way, and it allows more flexibility in viewing. You also want to consider if contrast and color filters are available, and that's what's going to be available in video magnification. Is that something that the student needs to be able to view materials? Ergonomics are a big thing too. A video magnifier allows for adjusting magnification to accommodate preferred working distances. And optical devices can use items such as reading stands to be more ergonomically positioned when using those devices. Also, does the student need something for spot reading versus longer reading tasks? And video magnifiers have things to address both of those, but so does prescribed magnification. And so it's good to assess if they have a prescribed device, looking at the differences in access versus spot reading and longer reading tasks between those two devices. And then integrated optical character recognition, or OCR. You want to look at that. If a student needs some audio assisted reading, then that's only going to be available through video magnification and not through a prescribed optical device. But it may be a tool that they need for their toolbox as well, especially for students who are English language learners. That audio assisted reading, if there's highlighting, that may be really beneficial for them to help keep up and learn along with their class. And that was adapted from Access Technology for Blind and Low Vision from Ting Su and Ike Presley from the newer Access Technology book. All right, so I know I'm throwing a ton of information at you, but that's why we record these. You can come back and maybe it gets you percolating, thinking of other questions you may have. You're welcome to contact me anytime if you need to brainstorm. But now we're going to look at how do I assess video magnification needs, because clinical low vision specialist has addressed prescribed magnification needs. So what about video magnification? Something that we can look at is TVIs. And there may be some recommendations too to consider from the clinical low vision specialist about video magnification. So those are some things you'd want to bring into your assessment as well. So again, we're going to take it back to set. We're going to think about the student, environment, the tasks they need to complete, and the tools that they already have, or the tools that they may need in the future. So let's think about a student in 5th grade with low vision. They're in an elementary school, obviously. They rotate between 2 classes, and next year they are, important transition, that transition to middle school. Dun, dun, dun. The task that the student has to accomplish right now, we've got to think back to the student's learning media assessment and what were all the things that the student needed access to. We can think back to those classrooms we were looking at earlier. So the tools the student already has are a dome magnifier and a monocular. And he needs access to distance items for longer periods of time, like presentations and instruction. Such as, and also the board, the clock, the words of the day, and stuff like that. What's maybe a tool you might consider trialing with this student or assessing the student's use with? What tool could you think of? 5th grade, 2 classes, transitioning to middle school next year. Really needs to access that board for longer periods of time. Ooh, we getting specific. A Mac Connect. All right. That has near and distance, has lots of bells and whistles. Yeah. Any other ideas out there to add to the student's toolbox? They have a monocular, but that is a good idea. Yes. So actually, let's say continued use of that monocular. He has a dome magnifier and monocular. And Karen's backing up her her suggestion. I wanted it to be portable, not like the Reveal, which is big and heavy, which is great for elementary school if they're in one room. And Danielle Johnson said tablet, iPad for taking photos and Zoom. Yes, great suggestions. Lots of good stuff. All right. CCTV. All right. All right, so as you type more, I'll start to go over. Oh, a handout. Sherry, I have a handout. Sherry's going to put a link in the chat, but this is also on our website under upcoming events. When you click on the link for this webinar, I have the handouts uploaded there. Actually, I should have mentioned that earlier, but the PowerPoint is there, and these 2 handouts that we're going to go over today. And this is the first one, and it's example procedures, for completing the assessment for desktop video magnification. And Sherry put it in the chat. Thank you. Hopefully it is shareable to all. Hope I remember to do that. But anyway, so I'm not going to go over everything. It's quite a long sheet. Oh, I can even share it on the screen. I pulled it up. Look at me go. All right, cool. Let me make this a little bigger. Ugh. That Control Plus just doesn't do the text justice there. Something you would want to, look at when you're looking at built-in accessibility. Anyway, all right. So this is a 7-page document full of ideas for assessing different areas or different considerations for video magnification use. So it goes over, the headings are ergonomics. So making sure that the student's positioning is appropriate and it's going to be comfortable to use. And magnification and viewing distance, making sure that the magnification can be increased to a comfortable level that also increases the student's working distance. And the controls. This is an important part, I think, that we don't think about as often, is the placement of the controls, or is there a remote control? How easy are they to manipulate and use? So it's just the placement and the ease of use of those controls. There's also polarity. I should be going through this like this. There's controls. polarity, which is typically the black on white, white on black, but underneath that is color. And sometimes when you change the color, that also changes the polarity. So if you chose like black on or white on black, it would be purple on black or whatever when you change that color. So the polarity is just changing what color is on top and bottom, and the color is actually changing the color contrast of the screen. Then writing, assessing writing, looking at the student, can the student write using the device? Can they read their handwriting back under the device? Can they read other materials under the device? And then definitely reading various materials. And so there's just a list of things that you can do here. I'm not going to go over every single one because we would need another hour, I think, to go through the handout. But this is for you guys to take back and hopefully begin to implement. And I hope it's helpful. Please let me know if it is, or if it's not, or adjustments I can make to make it better for you and for other teachers. And does anybody have any protocols that they use that they want to share, or any sort of list or checklist or anything? Please pop it in the chat, and maybe we can share that out with all the participants after the webinar. All right. Any questions so far about anything we've talked about? We've talked about a lot. Okay, moving on. And just a friendly reminder that just because a student can use his vision does not mean he should rely on his vision for every education task every day. And that's where that optical character recognition is so great for some of our students at OCR, to be able to give that auditory access if there's visual fatigue, if there's migraines. So that way they have just another tool for their toolbox to be able to access separately, or maybe it's Braille. Maybe they need to be accessing Braille when their eyes get tired. So just a lot of things to consider that you already do in your learning media assessment, and AT is just, it's an add-on to that. Okay. Oh, I did want to say one more thing too, and I almost said it on the other slide, but I knew it was coming. I have a colleague of mine who always says that using technology should not be painful. So it should not be uncomfortable to use technology. And if students just aren't in an ergonomic position, if they're getting tired or fatigued, we need to look at other options, and we need to look at options that make it less painful to use technology, or look at other avenues of access. And I just think that's really, that always just kind of stuck with me when she said that. I was like, oh yeah, it shouldn't be painful. She was working with a student who, she was 17 years old, and she didn't know how to use the built-in accessibility on her Mac. And she had to go to the chiropractor every week because of the way she was positioning herself while using her device. And she didn't know how to zoom in or use the screen reader. So once she learned that, it's like, oh my gosh, now I don't have to go to the chiropractor every week. So that's a real story. That's a real thing that happened. So students learning how to use all avenues of access, whether it's third-party software or using built-in accessibility, is critically important for the health of the student. Okay, anyway. All right, another example. So this is examples of considerations for students who are tactile and auditory learners of what should we be thinking about for their AAT toolbox. All right, so back to that 5th grade student. Well, we have a 5th grade student now who is a Braille reader. And again, 2 classes, transition to middle school next year. Got to think back to those classrooms in our learning media assessment. The student needs to read multi-volume Braille books. They're going to work with several teachers in middle school. What tools does this student have? Well, he has a Perkins Braille writer, he has an iPad with voiceover, and a Bluetooth keyboard. So what may be some good options for the student as they transition to middle school? They read multi-volume Braille books. Ooh, ooh. Reading my mind, Danielle and Karen. A refreshable Braille display, a Braille note taker. Learning how to use some email. Maybe learn how to use a computer. Might be some good skills, lots of good skills. Yes. So yeah, maybe a refreshable Braille display, and maybe it's one that has a QWERTY keyboard like the Mantis. The Braille display could work with a tablet, it could work for a computer, which increases the toolbox of access. You might want to look at different size refreshable Braille displays too, to see what provides the most efficient and effective Braille reading medium. So maybe they need 14 cells, maybe they need 18, 32, or 40. Hopefully not 80. That'd be tough to carry around. That's just for when you're sitting at a desk. Ooh, an abacus. Thanks, Sherry. Yes, low tech too. Low tech considerations too. Abacus is a great calculator. Okay, but and this brings up the point too that assessment and instruction are so intertwined, and this just drives this home because you're thinking now probably, well, I have to try all these devices. I have to see what works best for the student. And as you introduce devices like this, you're going to have to provide some instruction, at least the basics, so you can get an idea of what's going to work for the student and what's not going to work for the student, or what their preferences are. Maybe they're all great. Maybe it comes down to just some sort of positioning or the input. So speaking of those things, those considerations, for refreshable Braille, you want to consider what type of input. Is it going to be Perkins style input with a 6-key entry, or is it going to be keyboard input, like a full QWERTY keyboard? You want to think about the output. How many cells does the student need? Like we were just discussing. The placement of the controls. Is it all above the refreshable Braille strip, or is it below? Is it split? And what works best for that student? Is it does the student need a one-handed Braille display? Does it have that option? The actions of the device. Do you need, like Karen said, a full Braille note taker, something that is like a computer, or does the student need a smart Braille display that does some like light note taking on its own and then can be connected to a computer? Does it have audio output? Does that student need that audio output for if they're learning how to use the Braille display, or for audio assisted reading? For screen readers, really what you want to consider there is the complexity. And thinking about, if you're introducing a screen reader, do you need to decrease the verbosity? Like all those clues it gives you, it's so much information for any screen reader. It tells you what it is and what to do with it, and a lot of other information. But you can turn down that verbosity to make it less overwhelming. And so you can just focus on teaching concepts if that's where you're starting. So the complexity of the screen reader, those can actually be managed. But there's also something called menu-driven programs, which I love these programs. And the most common one, and the one I've had the most experience with, is called Dolphin Guide Connect. Anyone familiar with Guide Connect from Dolphin? They're the ones that make the Easy Reader app, and they have their own screen reader. I can't remember what it's called right now. Anyway, it's not Orca, but if you are familiar with Guide Connect, let me know. But what that does is it takes the complexity of a traditional operating system like Windows or Mac OS or even Chrome OS and makes it very simple. You can still do the same things like create emails and documents, search the internet. You can watch TV, you can use email, but it simplifies the user interface to make it very easy to navigate and user-friendly. I think it is so great for teaching introduction to computer concepts, and also really great for students that have cognitive disabilities as well. So it has its own built-in screen reader. You can navigate by mouse or keyboard. Everything is large and high contrast. And so if you have younger students and you're starting to teach them computer concepts and maybe it's just not working out, maybe a menu-driven program to get started might be an option. Or if you have students with cognitive disabilities that also need to learn how to use the computer and that's their goal, menu-driven programs are a great way. Oh, thanks, Sherry. It's simply Dolphin Screen Reader. I was thinking it was something more complicated. But Dolphin products are great. They're not traditionally used here. It's a UK brand, but great products as well. So anyway, those are menu driven programs. If you could put a link to Guide Connect, Dolphin Guide Connect, Sherry, too, that would be great. But so yeah, so that's, you have something else out there as well. It doesn't just have to be your standard Windows or Mac operating system. Any questions about that? I'll keep going. Thank you, Sherry. All right. Whew. So students, so some considerations for students with additional disabilities. We just talked about menu-driven programs, which are great for students that have additional disabilities, but it's really, really important that you are growing your AT team when you have students that have other needs. Because you may know a little bit about AAC or augmentative alternative communication devices, but those are very complex systems. I think as TVIs, we have enough we are responsible for, right? Screen readers, screen magnification, low and high tech tools, all kinds of stuff that you have to know as a TVI, right? So much. And now you have a kid that needs to use switches and augmentative and alternative communication devices. So that's not your wheelhouse, and that's okay. You need to know about them and some of their functions and capabilities, but that SLP is really going to be your best friend when you have a student who's using those devices. And somebody said that they are using those devices with a student. So if you want to, you know, as I'm talking, type in the chat about how you partner to implement those devices with your students, that'd be awesome to share that out. But who's on your team? But yeah, you need to involve that AT team. Really, really important. The OTs, PTs, LATs, SLPs will bring their expertise to the table. But when I had students that used AAC, I was always talking to the other techie people because we brought our expertise together to best serve the student. I had students who had CP, we had switches, we had AAC. We talked about the scanning length of time, how long to wait before the student could hit the switch. And they knew more about the positioning and how their muscles were working to interact with those devices. So really critical that they're a part of your team. And scanning, yeah, the scanning, I just talked about that. And eye gaze, really important to work with those OTs and PTs and those SLPs. And LATs, you have LATs in your areas, which are great resources for you. And they are local assistive technology specialists. They are in your region, they are in your district. They are all around the state. So find out who your LATs is if you don't know now. Good resource. And students who are dual sensory impaired are going to benefit from all the stuff that we talked about previously and the stuff that we're talking about now. But you really want to collaborate with that teacher of the deaf or hard of hearing, that TOD. You guys hanging in there? It's Friday. It's almost 3 o'clock. Hang in there with me. I'm really appreciative of it. All right. Trialing devices. Woohoo! Which device will be the best for your student? So through that wonderful functional vision learning media assessment, you have done the hard work. Think back to the scenarios we just discussed, and the trials are what are going to help you make the best judgment call on the features that will work for your student. And it's really important that you're focusing on the features and not necessarily the specific device. So I have a quick question for you to make sure you're still awake. All right. What barriers do you have in obtaining the appropriate technology for your students? Or if you're not teaching yet, I know there's some FSU students in the room. What could you see as potential barriers? All right, we have finances, funding, funding, the ordering process. Oh, parents not cooperating, ability to have non-standard text such as, oh, it cut you off, or does it show? Such as programs. Like software, I'm curious. Multiple disabilities. Yeah, working with that team. Cost, access to technology. Funding. Student comfort level. Is that student like willingness to use the device, the buy-in, student buy-in? Not being the TVI and being in the agency, it is a flip in that position. Yes, I know who that is. Oh, no. Oh, my. Sorry about that. How do I, oh, it's because I zoomed in, I think. Maybe? Nope. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay, I need more practice with glue clap because I'm scared to like touch things. So, okay. All right. I think that's it. Sorry. Student buy-in. Yes. Non-standard software. Oh, that third-party software. Space issues. Storage. ESL, accessibility and devices. Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks, guys. You're awake. You're here. Oh, and Marianne, balance. Be curious if you could elaborate on that, Miriam. Balance. I was always taking technology home with me, but that's also because I love it and I was so excited. So always had technology hanging out in my home. I saw it, getting districts to allow internet. That's a big thing. And a lot of the manufacturers know about this barrier as well. District security on devices. Yeah, these are big, real issues, definitely. This one. Tech for students with other impairments with okay, yep, that's where we have to work on that team. And sometimes I know that can be a challenge, but it is what's best for the student as much as you can make that happen. Ooh, Eileen had a good suggestion. Put access Wi-Fi on the IEP. That's hard to go against. I mean, that's what needs to happen because it's on the IEP. They're going to make it happen. Great suggestion, Eileen. I love that. All right. All right. So what are some things that you should be looking at when you're comparing AT for trial? Well, you're going to look at, the quality of whether it's a screen magnification program or it's a desktop magnifier. You want to look at the quality of that magnification. When you zoom it into the student's like preferred magnification level, what happens to the text? What happens to the images? Do things get blurry or just not look as good? And for Braille, you want to look at the quality of that Braille display. If it's, is it loud? Do all the dots pop up consistently so that you can actually read the Braille, or are they easy to press down? Can that be adjusted? You want to look at audio feedback. How does the voice sound? Can you change the voice? And look at the quality of that optical character recognition now. And I feel that's becoming less of a problem because it's just getting so good and it's everywhere. I hope you all know that on your phone, on your camera app, you can take a picture of text and run OCR. It blows my mind. I had a student who couldn't get Seeing AI downloaded on their phone this summer. So I taught them, okay, pull up your camera app, use VoiceOver, and they were able to grab text, to grab serial numbers off of a device to take some notes. So OCR is just everywhere and getting so much better. Ooh, battery life. That's such a good point, Miriam. Yes, the quality of that battery life, how long will it last? I know there are lots of devices out there that now they're giving out backup battery power because they know their devices just won't work when they're not plugged into the wall, which is unfortunate. Positioning of controls is something you want to look at. What works best for the student and is easy and efficient to operate. And sometimes you may need to work with a OT or a PT on those positioning of controls. Ergonomics, again, using technology should not be painful or uncomfortable. It should increase and maintain and improve the functional capabilities of that student, bringing it back to IDEA. You just really want to make sure that efficiency for student use and overall functionality is happening with continued instruction. Sometimes these devices have so many features, you're not sitting down and teaching all those features at once. It's a progression, right? So you're going to start with the basics, what they need to do to access the basic things of the classroom, and then build from there. And just with continued instruction and data collection, you're monitoring to ensure that that device continues to be efficient for that student in meeting the student's needs. And again, just very general because this is covering like all devices. All right. Writing the justification. You have, been just, oh, I don't know what to do. Figuring out what technology a student may need can be challenging. So a key element in that decision-making process includes matching the needs and abilities of the students with the features of the technology. So you're looking at the student first, think back to set, and then you're looking at the technology and what features work best for that student and their needs. And it's not the other way around. When recommending a device, it's important to focus on the features and be specific as possible to ensure a device is purchased for your student that meets the student needs and abilities that you have identified through your trialing process. If a device has specific features that work best for the student, you need to be as detailed as possible, again, as to what those features are and how they, let's say it together, increase, maintain, or improve access for the student. So again, bringing it back to IDEA. And on this slide, there is a picture, a little snippet of the APH video magnifier chart. And so looking at this, well, I'll describe what's happening first. So in the first column, it's the Jupiter portable video magnifier. And I'm going to read the description. It says the Jupiter is a portable desktop magnifier that folds for convenience and is a space-saving solution. It has a high quality distance camera and offers many color options. Excellent for reading a book, prescription bottle labels, or completing homework assignments. And then next to that is the Mac Connect. The Mac Connect is a magnifier and tablet together. It's a compact all-in-one magnifier, distance viewer, and educational Android tablet. The wide variety of features makes this device a great solution for education and work tasks. Okay, so knowing just a little bit about these two devices. Think back to that first grade student. Which device here, just thinking about what a first grader needs to do in their environment, what device might be best for them? No wrong answers here. No wrong answers. What would give the student more independent access and autonomy in the classroom between these two devices? All right. Jupiter, Jupiter, Jupiter. That's what I was thinking too, guys. It's simple. That's all a first grader needs is that access to the near and distance, changing the polarity and the colors, being able to zoom in. And the Jupiter, ooh, this is cool. This is one of those that I was talking about earlier where you can zoom all the way out, take a picture of what's underneath the camera, the handout or the book page or whatever, and then you can use the device to just zoom in and navigate with a little control wheel. Yeah, keep it simple. Thank you, Sue. Yes, keep it simple. That's all this first grader needs. They don't need a full-on Android tablet that does all the things, and the interface that's with that is a tablet interface. There's swiping, there's gestures, all kinds of stuff. So yes, keep it simple. Jupiter, love it. Oh, thank you, Sherry. She put the a link to the magnifier comparison chart in there for you. All right. Okay. So again, there is a really great resource I want to mention, but it's at the end in the resources section, and it's from Pennsylvania, but it's all about trialing devices with students who have low vision. So I highly recommend you check that one out. Again, this is posted on our website, so you can go ahead and access all the resources that are in this PowerPoint. All right, so back to writing the justification. So we talked, you know, saying features, that's what you need to write in here. So for that first grade student, you would say you need something that accesses near and distance, and then you can look at what else does this magnifier offer, because really this is the one for them if after you've trialed it. You could write down, I need a video magnifier that has a 13-inch LCD monitor. It needs to do magnification level between 1.2x to 150x. It has buttons on the front for controls. Yes. It has 35, it needs 35 color contrast options. So that's what I mean, getting specific about everything, those features that device has. There may be another device that does exactly the same thing. And if that's the case, then maybe you need to do some comparison about what happens when you zoom in far, what happens to the text, what happens to an image. But that way you can say, this is the one that meets this criteria. Clearly, statedly, and there's no other option. Let's see. So I think we covered, yeah, for video magnifiers, we've covered what you should look at as far as features. And then of course, quality of braille, like we were discussing on the other slide. That's important to note too. The size, the length of the braille cells, how many are there? The positioning of the keyboard on the braille display. So those types of things. And noting this student increased reading speed and comprehension when they read with 40 sounds. So just the facts is what you want to put in there when you're writing that justification. If anybody else has any other good tips on writing the justification, pop them in the chat. All right, we are so fortunate in Florida. We have lots of places we can go to ask for devices to trial, because I think sometimes that can be a challenge. And I'm glad nobody mentioned that, because maybe you're already using all the wonderful resources available out there. But vendors would love for you to trial the technology that they have on hand in hopes that you will buy it from them someday. So Florida Vision Technology has a wide range of devices, and Lisa Kretschmer is wonderful to work with. She's mostly in the south and central Florida. And then Emerald Coast Vision Aids is more up in the north to central. There's also Florida's federal program for assistive technology. It's an ATAC program called FAST, Florida Alliance for Assistive Services and Technology. And this also applies not just for young students, but also older adults. Not older adults, but after they've graduated high school. FAST can also help people obtain technology. So FAST is a great resource. So I highly recommend checking them out. And then there's the AT-UDL loan library, which is available through another Florida discretionary project, the TLC project. And you have to work with the LATs. I mentioned that term earlier, the local assistive technology specialist, in order to use this library. But make friends with your LATs. You may be a LATs in your district. Some TVIs are, especially in small and rural districts. So you could access the AT-UDL loan library. They have additional vision related technology on there as well. Our loan library, FIMC, we have a loan library tool that has technology. We have a wonderful spreadsheet managed by Colleen Mulcahy on our website under the services page. So if you visit our services page and scroll down to loan library, you can see our wonderful spreadsheet with all the we have curricula, we have books, professional materials, tactile teaching tools, and technology available for loan. Also, reach out to manufacturers. They want their technology in your hands and in those students' hands. So reach out to manufacturers too. Often they have devices that they're willing to loan you for trial. All right. So considerations for future AT needs. And I know we've kind of touched on this as we've been through this slideshow. But really considering those school transitions is so important. And technology can't just be recommended at one point. It's kind of like learning media. You want to look at that again and again to make sure that it is effective and efficient for the student. It's still working. This is what the student needs to be successful for their current and future goals. So school transitions are a part of that. So that transition from elementary to middle to high to dual enrollment or extended transition, we need to look at the students' technology needs during that time too. So you're looking at always big things. You're looking at learning media. You're looking at orientation and mobility, and add AT to that during those transitions. Some other things you want to think about are district and statewide assessments and progress monitoring. You know, we want to ensure students have equitable access to computer-based tests. So it's important that students are learning how to use technology early on in order to be able to access those things. And the same with any cloud platforms that are being used that we kind of talked about earlier, like Google Classroom, Canvas, or learning how to access PDFs, someone mentioned. So whatever's being used in the school district, we want to make sure students have that ability to access that tech like everybody else is. You want to consider the student's visual prognosis. If they're going to be losing vision later in life, or they're kind of in this in between stage of being able to access the computer visually, but they do really need some screen reader support, you might want to consider software like Fusion for that student. Or maybe really that visual access isn't the best option anymore, and you may want to just go ahead and start with a screen reader right away. Electives. Does a student have any electives that they're going to be participating in? Is it a coding club? Is it some sort of rec and leisure club or sports club? So maybe they need some assistive technology or accommodations to be able to participate in those activities. So always just begin with the end in mind as much as you possibly can when you're thinking about technology for your students. Ooh, what about computers? I saw that a lot of you put that your students are using computers, and that just made my heart so happy. And I'm going to get into a specific type of computers on the next slide. But computers are a huge part of all students' futures. I mean, they're used for everything. Applying for jobs, sometimes there's computer kiosk at places where you can apply for a job right there. People manage banking accounts, all kinds of stuff using their computers. Yeah, I was about to skip ahead. Anyway, okay. So next question. Woo, clap. Do any of your students use a computer for school? Whether it's a Chromebook, Mac, or Windows PC? And then if you could type in the chat what type of computer you're using, that would be great. Chromebook, Dell. HP. Okay, so we got some Windows, we got Chromebook. Anybody using Macs or MacBooks? All right, I'm gonna keep going. You can keep typing in the chat, but thank you for that. This helps give me some perspective. This is a great number. Oh, Karen said no student computers. We have one-to-one iPads with keyboards. Oh, I'm so glad to hear there's keyboards involved at least. That's great. Because touch typing is one of those things I feel that was really getting left in the dust there, and maybe that's being recognized as important. New this year. I hope that trend keeps happening. Tablets with real keyboards. That would be great. Awesome. Cool. All right. So speaking of tablets, sometimes I often hear, and maybe I'm speaking to the choir here, I don't know, but I hear so many times, it's like that question you get, well, isn't Braille going away? And I hear, do students need to access a computer anymore? They have a tablet or a phone in that case. What are your thoughts on this? I'm curious. Can a student just use a tablet and a phone and do everything they need? Print isn't obsolete. That's right, Sue. It is not. And neither are our wonderful computers. Computers have more processing power and storage. They need them. Yes. They want to be competitive in the job market after graduation. Yes. And if not, if they're going to college. Yes. Students need to be exposed to computers no matter what their post-secondary goals are, whether they are applying for jobs and doing interviews. So many places like even interview on Zoom now. So students really need to be familiar with computers. Tablets are great. They're a great tool for many students, but it's not the only tool. Think about how many devices you personally use in a day. Students with visual impairments need that same opportunity to learn the many tools at their disposal and to be able to choose what works best for the task. Think about like, you know, sometimes you check your email on your phone and it's a quick like, cool, see you there, or thanks for the information. But if you want to sit down and write like this thoughtful like email, you're maybe requesting a donation or You want to develop contact with a mentor for your students. You're not just gonna like, maybe I'm wrong. I couldn't sit there and do that on my phone. I need to sit down on the computer and actually use, Outlook and my keyboard and write a thoughtful, well-crafted email. And then same for like your learning media and functional vision assessments. Are you writing those on your phone? If you are, wow, I'm impressed. But that doesn't work for everybody. But I couldn't imagine doing that. That's just too much, too big. I need to sit down on a computer and do that lengthy task on a computer. And Miriam said, noted that Mac does not work properly with Microsoft and VoiceOver though. Yeah, so definitely cross-platform issues can happen as well. That is a thing, and that's why assessment is important, depending on what devices your school district is giving out and what the student needs to access and with what assistive technology. Yeah, so the standard out in the workforce is still the computer and primarily Windows operating systems. So it's really critical, I think, that students, if possible, they learn multiple platforms. That's great if that can happen, but they really need to learn how to use a Windows computer. And I think back to the mission in your school district. In Hillsborough County Public Schools, it's preparing students for life. So you want to do what's going to prepare that student for life after school, and make them as independent as possible and to have autonomy and to be able to make choices in their life, including what type of assistive technology they use for whatever task they need to complete. Okay, so, I want to describe the image on this. It says 20 years later, and all of these things fit in your pocket, and it's a guy that has like a VHS camcorder. He's got a boom box. There's a calculator, a weather radio, Walkman, cassettes, CDs, all the stuff, electronic typewriter, all kinds of stuff. Really, truly, all of that is in our hand, but that doesn't mean it is the only device that students should be using. All right, so some considerations for computer access. I have another handout, Sherry. It's tips for assessing computer access with built-in accessibility on Windows. This handout here. So she's going to pop that in the chat, but and I'll talk about that more on the next slide. But some considerations for computer access. The method of input, what is that student going to use to put information into the computer and to communicate with the computer? Is it going to be Braille input through a refreshable Braille display? Is it going to be through a QWERTY keyboard? Are they going to use eye gaze or switch input? What type of visual access will this student need? Again, thinking back to your learning media assessments and your functional vision assessments, contrast, highlighting, magnification. Do they need built-in accessibility or third party? And that's what we're going to talk about on the next slide. Auditory access, does the student need that in addition to maybe visual access or tactile access? Do they need to use a screen reader, or do they need to do some spot reading using text to speech or some sort of select text and read? Does it need to be built-in accessibility or third party? And some other considerations are, of course, progressive vision loss and always considering the future needs of the student and the language of the student. Oh, okay. I've got 10 minutes left, guys. Oh, I'm sorry, captioners. I know I talk fast. Language for the students, the output language, and then the Braille output as well, if that's efficient for the students. So those are considerations for computer access. All right, where to start? It's always good. I think of a least restrictive environment when thinking about where to start. So if your district is a one-to-one district and your students are already being provided devices, let's start with the built-in accessibility. See what works there and see if there's a need for third-party software solutions, or maybe that if you are a one-to-one district and those built-in accessibility options aren't working, and let's say it's a Chromebook where you can't really install anything else, that may not be the right device for your student. And now you're going to have the data to show that. But it depends. Chromebooks have their place too. I'm not knocking Chromebooks. I think they're a great device, but I think students need to learn Chromebooks and maybe a Windows computer if possible. All right, so built-in accessibility, is it enough for what the student needs? What features benefit the students? And I was going to do some demo here, but I'm not going to have a lot of time to do that. But what I will talk about is built-in accessibility. And that's what the handout is that Sherry popped in the chat. And I have it up here somewhere. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay. So the document that Sherry popped in the chat, and that's available on our website, is tips for assessing computer access with built-in accessibility on Windows 10. Windows 10. It's a similar process for Windows 11, but things are called different things. For example, accessibility in Windows 10 is called ease of access. Well, in Windows 11, it's just accessibility. Yay! So that's a really positive change, but you can still just press the Windows key on your Windows keyboard, type in settings, or you could even type in ease of access, or if you're on Windows 11 accessibility, and pull that up, those options up. And I do have, so let me go over this handout first. I'm sorry, I'm chasing squirrels. It goes through each setting that you find on the left-hand side of when you pull up the accessibility options. And I'm going to pull up my settings menu right now. So, let me go to ease of access. All right. So on the left-hand side, it has all the ease of access or accessibility options, vision, hearing, and interaction. So under vision, it starts with display. And what that does is that changes like the size of the text and the icons on the screen. So I don't always recommend starting with that, but you're going to know your students best. But I would start with magnification first and then work from there. And that's what this document outlines. It goes through each of those options and tells you some activities you can do to assess that area, and what those actually mean. It just kind of spells it out for you. Everything from mouse pointer, text cursor, contrast filters, and stuff like that. And then it talks about too, how to use the magnifier, the built-in magnifier in Windows 10. And then it gives you some considerations between magnification versus third-party like Zoom text. So Windows built-in magnifier and Zoom text. One thing I have noticed is that a lot of, I worked with some older adult clients over the summer, and they really preferred the contrast options that are built into Windows here, the high contrast. And you just turn that on. I'm going to turn it off though. Takes a minute to go back. Hopefully it will. Anyway, maybe not. There we go. They prefer that contrast to what Zoom text provides. They'll use Zoom text as a magnifier and the high contrast options that are built in. So those are just some things that you also want to tweeze out and consider. And you might not do it in the first shot. It may be something that takes over time for you to figure that out, and that's okay. And then at the back of the handout, let me get back there. Scroll down, bear with me. I have comparison charts of how they did using Windows 10 magnifier and Zoom text and the built-in accessibility options. So you can kind of go through that and use that as a comparison for data collection for yourself. So hopefully that's a helpful handout for you guys. I'm sorry we can't talk more about it because I have 5 minutes left. Okay. Anyway, so there are some things that you want to tweeze out, and that could just be over time. Once you determine, okay, this student would really benefit from Zoom text over using Windows magnifier. Those are some things you can tweeze out. I can't give you that demo. That's going to take too long. And real quick, I'll just say narrator, JAWS versus NVDA. They all are wonderful options for access, but JAWS is typically the industry standard, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We have a lot of support here, especially in the United States. JAWS is actually based, or Freedom Scientific, the company that makes JAWS, is based here in Florida. So we have really easy access to customer support here. Also, you can get it, teachers get it for free for their students on quota funds, eligible for that. So that's a great thing. Industry standard, but also JAWS has the ability to be scripted to work with many programs that might be considered inaccessible in the workplace for the future. So JAWS is great. NVDA is wonderful too. And that's a great option for at home or just surfing the web or whatever. And no reason students couldn't learn both if you have the time. What's great though is that JAWS and NVDA have very similar keyboard commands. In fact, I would say like 99% of those keyboard commands are the same. So good stuff. Some assessment tasks that you can do using the built-in accessibility are looking at a website, reading a Word document, looking at a picture, maybe a PDF, and some other considerations, just comfortable and appropriate working distance, making sure those ergonomics are on point. Looking at how much magnification the student needs. If you're going over 4 or 5x, if the student's going over 4 or 5x, a screen reader or a combination of both might be more appropriate for longer reading and for those ergonomic purposes. Ease of use with the mouse versus the keyboard. The keyboard is king. If the students are able to type on a QWERTY keyboard, if they have that ability, they'll be a much faster computer user using that QWERTY keyboard than they would be with a mouse, especially with screen magnification, sorry. Clarity, ease of use, and compatibility with built-in accessibility versus third-party applications. You want to make sure that text remains clear and the pictures remain clear, and always consider the future needs of the student. So it's really important too, thinking about that. If they leave school and they no longer have access to maybe software that you provided, it's great that they know how to use NVDA or they know how to use Windows Magnifier, so they can at least access their devices until they can maybe request other equipment through other agencies. Instruction and support for families. It's really, skills can be taught in isolation, but that push-in is really important, ensuring that student is using that technology in the classroom and that you're modeling for others of what this should look like, what the use of this device should look like. Provide a variety of positive experiences and success, and that's going to make that student more confident and comfortable to use those devices. And if they're more involved in the trialing of those devices and choosing what works for them, they're going to have more buy-in to use that device. Allow for mistakes and talk about it. I make mistakes all the time, every day. So does everybody else, and we're human, and students need to see that we're human too. And tell them it's okay to make mistakes and be human. Take risks. Determine what works in different situations. Train other professionals at that school across environments if possible, so they can continue facilitating the use of that device while you're not there, because you're not there all the time. And keep data, making sure that that technology continues to work for the student. Alarms going off. And we want to know, is the technology not working for the student? Then we need to go back and adjust and maybe trial some other devices. You need to tweeze out why that technology isn't working. Okay, when should you introduce technology? Early. It's in the standards, and that's on these 2 slides. Don't wait until they're quote unquote ready to learn. I'm sorry, I'm glossing over those, but children are learning to use technology at such a young age. I know you all know this, and you see it, you observe it every day. So our students need those same opportunities to be digital natives too, just like kids growing up today. Real quick plug, the assessment of Braille literacy skills. They have digital competencies now in their new edition. So something to take a look at. And I know FSU students may be familiar because Dr. Michael Tuttle worked on that to make sure that was happening. These are the resources, lots of good stuff. Make sure you check out the resources page when you download the PowerPoint. So some final thoughts. If you have any final thoughts yourself, type them in the chat. Peers who have typical vision are learning to access technology for school. So our students need to as well. Students who are visually impaired deserve to learn that same technology through whatever access meets their needs. Students need to learn to use these devices effectively and efficiently. We can't just wait till they're ready to learn. We need to start introducing it earlier on and develop those concepts early. So thank you for spending Friday afternoon with me. And I want to honor your time. It is 3:30 p.m. Thank you for everything. Here are my references in case you're interested. Here's an evaluation. Please, this helps us improve our practice and let you leave feedback about what we provide. And in-service credit. I guess you guys want that, huh? So to get points, Your closing code is TECH, TECH. Here's my contact info. If you ever want to get in touch with me, or if you want to brainstorm about some technology, I'm happy to do so. If you want to talk about assessment, I'm open to it. This probably should have been 2 webinars. But anyway, thank you again for spending Friday afternoon with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And also, I didn't get a chance to say, I hope everyone stayed safe in the storm, and I hope you and your loved ones are okay here in Florida. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Andrea, can you
Survey.
go back? Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I know it was fast. Sorry.